Hi and welcome to Valley View Retreat, our wonderful home here in the Sierra de las Nieves mountains in southern Spain. It's the 14th of March 2021 in the second year of the global pandemic. Here at Valley View this week I made a table. This is the coffee table. I didn't film the entire making of this table because you've already seen me make things and I wasn't sure that it was something that you would be all that interested in. It is made from the joists and the floorboards of an old shed which I stripped back and made, and it's had its first coat of varnish. It's ready for sanding down, and a second coat of varnish, and then it can go into the tiny house. And this will make it the last piece of furniture that's necessary for the tiny house. It'll then be finished. And the only thing that will be missing from it is a fridge. And I'll talk to you about that a little bit later on. Last week I covered how our solar system had actually already paid for itself, and how pleased we were with that. I've had a couple of private messages through Facebook, people asking questions about the actual system itself. And there are a couple of things that I need to clarify. Okay. So the first thing is that we have lived off-grid. This is our 17th year. And in the beginning, we made the decision to live off-grid, and we bought our appliances accordingly and learned to use them accordingly. So what's normal for us would not be normal for people who live in the town with an inexhaustible supply of electricity, and everything is just a flick of a switch. So we do tend to be careful, and we're very careful about the appliances that we buy and how we actually use them. So our electricity usage would be significantly less, I would think, than most average households. We don't use more than we actually need. So all of the figures that I've given you, please bear that in mind. If your expectation is that you're coming from a 4-bedroomed house somewhere in the suburbs with 2 chest freezers and televisions in every room, and you're using hair dryers and electric ovens, fan assisted ovens and all of that, your costs in putting together a solar system would be significantly greater in order to cope with all of that. If you're living an off-grid lifestyle and looking to keep your footprint, as low as possible, then yes, you can do it the way that we did it and live quite comfortably. But I must add that caveat in, just in case people think that for £4,000 or something you can set a solar system up and live the same way that you do in the suburbs. That's not really true. Okay, so at this particular time of the year we're getting the first of the spring birds, and I've got a little piece just to let you hear what our dawn chorus actually sounds like. For those of you wondering exactly what our weather is like here on a year-round basis, in August of last year we hit 50 degrees, which is 122 degrees Fahrenheit, on 3 occasions. Our August average temperature was 42 degrees, which is about 107 degrees in the shade. Our average winter temperature during the daytime would be in the lowish 20s, so somewhere in and around the early 70s degrees Fahrenheit. Our average nighttime temperature in the winter would be about 5 degrees, and that's at its coldest, which would be about 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Our lowest temperature that we've ever recorded here was about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was -5, which was 23 degrees Fahrenheit. So for those of you who asked that question, there you go. There's your answer. Please take this opportunity to hit subscribe and like. It really does help us. Thank you. Okay, I'm sitting here in what we call our summer patio, and this week has been all about the summer patio and actually making the roof for this. It's the summer patio because it's north facing on the tiny house. So the sun rises behind me in the east and then it moves south this way. This means that the sun will shine on the far side of the house first, and then in the summer it will be quite high in the sky, but still to the south, which is in that direction, and then moving west. So this patio will only get sun in the late evening when you want it and it's probably bearable. In order to ensure that I get as much protection here as possible, I've done this in a number of layers to block the sun and finished it with rushes. And I've got some video, time-lapse video of that, and I'll show you how that was actually done. So the next job on the tiny house will be to do the winter terrace. The winter terrace on the far side of the house, and it will catch the sun from very early in the morning the whole way through the entire day. So it's ideal for winter when the sun isn't extremely hot. However, that side of the house is where we'll get most of the sun on the walls, and already I've seen that there's some cracking in the paint on that side from last summer's very intense sun. So I want to put a roof on that terrace which will block the sun when it's at its highest during the summer and keep that wall in shade to minimize the amount of damage that it does. And then as the sun drops during the winter, it will come in underneath that roof and heat that terrace, so that if you want to sit there in the sun in the winter, you can do that and it should be quite pleasant. So that's the next outside job to do. The next inside job, and probably the last inside job to do on the tiny house, is to convert a chest freezer into a fridge. And I'll do a step-by-step video on how I'm actually going to do that. The reason that I'm converting a freezer into a fridge rather than putting an actual fridge in is that it's much more energy efficient. Freezers are made so that when you close the lid, particularly chest freezers which open from the top, when you open the lid, the cold doesn't spill out the way it does when you open an actual fridge. So opening the lid doesn't have such a devastating effect on the internal temperature. Also, freezers are much better insulated than fridges are, which means that when the lid is closed, even with the electricity off, they stay cold for a very long time. And they're very efficient, very, very efficient in comparison to a fridge. So the issue is that even at its lowest setting, it will freeze whatever is in it. So what I'm going to do is to fit an extra thermostat to it and connect that thermostat to the actual power supply. So I can now set that thermostat for about 3 degrees, which is about what your fridge would be. And when the internal temperature drops to 3 degrees, it will just cut the power to the fridge freezer. And it will hopefully maintain that temperature for a long period of time. When it rises to about 5 or 6 degrees, bam, it'll come back on again, drop the temperature down, and keep it functioning as a fridge rather than as a freezer. So that would be the ideal solution for a tiny house, particularly one that isn't going to be used all of the time. The freezer will attain its temperature very quickly, maintain it for a long period of time. It's a little inconvenient in that you have to lift the lid and go looking for things in it. But because a tiny house will be used for visits and people coming for maybe 5 or 6 day holidays, the amount that will be in it will be relatively small, so it won't be that difficult to find what you're looking for. And as I say, it's the simplest solution. A small fridge freezer is actually very inefficient in comparison to something like a AAA rated fridge freezer. So putting a small one in just doesn't make any sense. The chest freezer is the ideal solution. So I may do that during this week, and I'll have a blow-by-blow count of how that goes. The last outside job that we have to do is the landscape. After I do the terrace, will be the landscaping here. And although the place is in a mess and it seems like that's a very big deal, it will actually go quite quickly. Once everything is cleaned up, all the debris is cleaned up, then laying out where the gravel is to go and where the plants and everything are to go will be quite quick. So I would expect that we will have the entire place finished and ready to do an entire tour through within about 3 weeks or so. So stay tuned for that. We've hit the 150 subscriber mark, which is amazing. I can't believe that the last 50 subscribers came in less than a month, and the first 100 took, I don't know what it was, like 10 months. So thank you very much for any of you who have actually subscribed, and for those of you who haven't, please take this opportunity and do that. It really does help us. So this week we've had we're into the second week of our local lockdown actually being lifted. So I was able to get back to doing some guitar classes, go out and do some teaching. Unfortunately, I started off with, I think it was 8 different students before the last lockdown, and I'm back down to 2. 6 of them either found somebody more local who wasn't going to be affected by the future lockdowns, either gave up the guitar altogether, or are finding it, like most people are, finding it financially more stressful than it would have been normally. So just 2 students, but still it's nice to be back at work, given the fact that in Spain at the moment the vaccination program doesn't seem to be moving forward at any speed at all. And despite the promises, it doesn't look like we're actually going to get a significant number of people vaccinated before the summer or even before the end of the summer. So that's likely to affect our business very significantly. We've already had cancellations for our wedding business for all of May and most of June, and July is starting to cancel now as well. So it'll be interesting to see what way this year actually goes. As it is, it's given us an opportunity to discuss some money saving tips and the way that we've actually managed to survive. For those of you who have joined us and don't recently and haven't watched earlier videos, I'm a wedding guitarist by profession. My wife is a wedding hair and makeup artist. We only deal with destination weddings. In other words, people are flying in here to get married because of the wonderful weather and the wonderful facilities that we have here. We haven't had a wedding, an actual wedding, since October of 2019. So last year, or this last year and a half, has been devastating for us financially. And as I say, that gives us an opportunity to discuss how we actually survived that, and we'll do that in a future video. So listen, I've talked enough, I've rabbited on. Thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next week, and take the opportunity to like and subscribe. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.